Hello, Hackfest judges. This is Charles Mangan. I'm recording my Hackfest entry for KansasFest 2020. It is Wednesday, July 22nd, 6:35 p.m. I may make one more update to this later on, but that's when I'm doing this. So I started with an image of topological map of the Grand Canyon. Here's the Colorado River as it winds its way through the lovely twisty bits of the Grand Canyon. I then took that and created a sort of false color version of it in low res Apple II colors, just a few colors, a couple of shades of green, brown, and then the two blues. I converted that to data and put it on a disk. And we will see as it loads from the disk what that looks like as it scrolls by. And this is interesting, but not as interesting as it could be. And what it could be is in 3D. So here we are looking at flying through that Grand Canyon map in 3 dimensions. So here it is in 2, and then here it is with the height applied to it. And you can see that the river valley is only rendering, say, 2 pixels tall, while the mountains are several pixels tall, and then everything in between is rendering in that way. The depth map of the river valley is this image here. And you can see that it's assigned lighter colors for the higher parts and darker colors for the lower parts. And so I took that image and the color image that I created from it and combined them using a Python script that essentially took the height and converted it into a nibble, and the color and converted it into a nibble, and then combined the 2 nibbles into a byte and scrolled through the full data that way. And so now what's happening is the image is rendering in a 3D engine, so to speak, or algorithm, where the height data determines how many pixels tall each column renders, and the color is obviously the color, and that's coming from that same data file that was loading from the disk at the beginning. And it masks each successive layer by rendering only on the black parts of the screen. So as it renders, it will go from front to back and only render a few pixels in the back based on the height if they are taller than the pixels that are in front. And this is controlled by what's called I've just called it a perspective algorithm, I guess you could call it, where the bytes of the image are rendered depending on where they are on the screen. So when you're at the this is in reverse to how it's shown on the screen because I'm rendering it from front to back. But the front of the screen, the bits of or the bytes of the image are rendered if the bit in this perspective data is a 1, and it rolls through all the bits of each line of the perspective. So it only renders these 40 pixels in the middle of this 120 pixel image for the first row, and then it skips a couple for the second row, and so on, until the very last row is 1 pixel and then 2 skips. And so if you were to fill the screen, it would go all the way across the image, and you'd be able to fill 40 pixels from 120 bytes of data. And so if you can see the structure here is such that it goes from seeing only the 40 pixels in the middle of the image all the way back to all 120 pixels, but it skips 2 out of every 3. On the height of the height map determines how tall the pixels render. So the water is generally in the black and darkest gray parts, and then up to the mountains becomes green and darker green closer to the valleys. So there's the height map. You can see as it scrolls through here, that the mountains come down to the valley and then back up to the mountains again. So for lack of a better name, I'm calling this project Flyover, and hoping maybe by the end of KansasFest I can have some additional images to map and to fly over, and maybe I'll have some additional speed, because I wouldn't mind seeing it go in full speed here, flying through. The next step I think might even be to make it so that you can turn, sort of swipe left and right, depending, and it would do different pieces of the canyon, so you'd be able to see the left-hand side or the right-hand side and sort of swipe left and right. But that hasn't been finished yet, and I wanted to get this done so that I could make the video of it. Anyhow, thank you for your consideration, and have a lovely day.